Hi everyone, welcome to this edition of Addictions, Abuses, and Recovery. My name is Sherry Irvin and I will be your host. With me today, I have special guest, Mr. Devin Stoik. Devin is a man living in long-term recovery, and Devin and I are going to sit down and we're going to talk about what pathway works for him, where he sees changes that need to be made, and what he's going to do with his future. And we're also going to explore dual diagnosis. Mental health and addiction go hand in hand. So with that, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Devin Stoik. Thank you so much for being here, Devin. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
First of all, I want to give you a huge shout out. Devin is entering into the social media marketing field, and he has produced some absolutely fantastic videos. Check him out on TikTok. Check him out on Instagram, Facebook. He's doing a wonderful thing. He's talking about mental health and how it affects us on the day-to-day. So if you're looking for any, to get any business help, Devin is your man. I can't thank him enough. He has been helping me revamp my page, because anybody that knows Sherry knows that Sherry has no computer savvy whatsoever. So, alrighty, so getting to the crux of it, let's talk some recovery. So first of all, we do know that addiction has always been a huge problem, but now you add on COVID-19, and it has put people just in dire straits. It has not only affected them emotionally, physically. The financial burden is beyond belief. I don't even know how we're going to recover from it. Not to mention, I dare say that it has affected people spiritually as well. And I know for myself that, and I know for many others, isolation is a huge thing. So I know that you come from a rural community within Minnesota here. What are you seeing in your community?
Well, just like everywhere else, this pandemic has been it's been really, really bad on everybody's mental health. And, I just think that it's really hard for people to, in this generation today, to reach out. Everything is shifting. That's why I'm shifting to social media networking, is because everything's shifting. Our whole society is shifting to a media type, society. And, you don't see a lot of people participating in, I go to Zoom meetings, all the time, and that's how I work with my recovery. But, the attendance and people getting involved with that is very, very limited. And, I think that one of the reasons is, the video part of Zoom, and people don't want to be on there, and it affects a lot of people. Isolation, that's a huge thing. You're at home, you can't do a lot. You can't go anywhere, so we're kind of like pushed into an isolation. So for the things that I do, as far as isolation is, I try to just stay connected, calling people, and I go to a Zoom meeting every single day, because I got to stay connected. And if I didn't, it'd be a bad thing, so. So the rural areas are really, it's just like everywhere else right now with this pandemic, and it's affecting every like you said, it's a really hard mental hurt for everybody, I think so.
Well, not to mention too, especially with the financial part, so many people have lost their jobs. So many people have to really think. Gas prices are rising, so they have to really be frugal on where they're traveling to. And transportation, it's a huge issue, especially when you're in a rural area. Not to mention the fact that there's not enough peer recovery specialists out there to go around, right, and to help. And so that isolation is even more so. Not to mention the fact that, even in our younger generation, and I'm sure you've noticed this too, the suicide rates are climbing. Uh, the homelessness
Yep.
is becoming a factor. So what I've said time and time before in some of my other podcasts is that the younger generation, especially, those are the people that are coming into the ER. They're displaced. Yep. And so if obviously they're homeless, so they don't have access to a Zoom room. They don't have access to the computer. Right. They don't have access to a vehicle because they're homeless.
Right.
So they're going to go out and do what's familiar to them. And in today's day and age, the liquor store is considered essential. And you hate to say it, but thank God it actually is, because it would be even worse.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are the things that that I'm seeing. And and the numbers are rising, even though we're starting to ease up a little bit on this pandemic that's mm-hmm. happening. How to get people to come back from that? They've lost everything. They have no homes. Right. Especially if the dynamics are not good at home. And then what we were talking about earlier, add dual diagnosis on that.
Right.
Mental illness. Tell me what you're seeing with even with some of the younger generations or some of the people in your programs.
Well, you don't see a lot of people, younger people looking for help. I think it's more of a 25 and up, or even more. So you don't see a lot of the younger generation seeking the help, and it's because, like you said, they don't have the transportation and the resources to get that. But I think we really need to. That's one part that I like to do. I love to help people. So I reach out. I'm always open to people calling me or whatever. And I think we need to just have more people that are open and willing to open their lives up to these people, these younger kids, and help them. We can't change the things that are happening in dual diagnosis people, and unless we're out there helping. I think that's a huge problem. It's hard because with COVID, we don't want to be close to people and stuff like that. But I try to tell people that, just even if you make a phone call to somebody and you may change the way they think that day. Mm-hmm. So that's something that I do personally. And I agree, like I just said, the information out there is way limited, and it's really not a good thing. But and I do agree too that with this coming out of it it's going to be super hard, coming out of this pandemic, and it changes. The only way we can change it is by being helpful ourselves, and reaching out to people. And that's what I was taught, growing up in recovery, and that's what, how I live my life today. So hopefully we can get more people to be like that, open their hearts, open their phones, and being just selfless, when it comes to helping other individuals. I think we need that.
How much clean time do you have under you?
I got 11 years. I came in the program in 2009. And I became, do you want me to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely.
I came in the program in 2009. I was done. I was sick of living the life that I lived, running and hiding from everything, including myself, so, I became a single father during my recovery, and I have a 9-year-old son now, which is amazing. It's a lot of work being a single dad and being in recovery. He also struggles with ADD, so he was just diagnosed with that back in March, and that carries on through family, and it's unfortunate, but I see the things in him that I see in myself, and it's really kind of sad, but yeah, so my recovery is very important to me. That's how I live my life. I just said in a meeting the other day that I don't know any other way today. I've embedded myself into living the life I was taught through recovery programs.
Now, do you do a spiritual 12-step?
Yes, I do spiritual 12 steps through a program. I did the steps early in my recovery. I believe that we work the steps in the beginning, and then I think that once we work the steps, we learn to live them. In the program they have certain ways they want you to do things, but I recently, in the last 2 years, have really worked on my spiritual being. I'm a big advocate of how do I say that? Searching for your higher spiritual self. And that's what I've done over the last couple of years. My sister introduced me to some different ways to look at spirituality, different resources, I should say. We're conditioned, I think, when we're brought up, we're conditioned. I thought that, we go to church, and we got to do this and we got to do that. And, I've learned in recovery by I was being able to be myself. And that there's so much other things out there spiritually than just, religion, and stuff like that. And
I agree. There are so many different pathways to choose. Like I've said in other podcasts, there's holistic, there's well-variety, the native way, there's church-based, so many different pathways, and not every pathway works for everybody. You have to find your own way in your journey.
Exactly. And in actuality, in a big round ball, it really all is the same. All the different religions, spirituality, we're reaching for that higher self of our, higher self, spiritual self. I think that, we are at our best when we're at our highest spiritual selves. And I've just been amazed over the last, couple of years, like I said, that there's not a day that goes by that I work on just being a better person, and working on, because humans, we naturally want to beat ourselves up, and I think that, there's so many things out there to help us not do that to ourselves, I do it to myself still, I'm guilty of it, but I have tools today, and I have ways that I have particular ways that I get out of them sometimes, and I strongly believe that I believe in God, and I think God puts us in them situations to build us stronger and be better individuals. And the reward from that, what's rewarding is being able to give that to somebody else, and that's what I like to do. And
do you see any downfalls from the steps? What's hindered you?
No, I don't think so. No. It's a very, very good platform to get somebody on their feet and to get them in the direction they need to get, and, just living again, I think the 12 steps, I honestly think that, you know, the guy that created the big AA program, I think that he read the Bible, and he sat down and he wrote his, you know, first recovery book. It's all the same thing. It's all in how we want to use it. You know, it's all spiritual. You know, it's not a religious, or the program isn't anyway. But the highest goal is to be spiritual and to live better lives, and that's my goal every day that I wake up, and if I can bless somebody else with that one person in that day, you know, that I go to bed sleeping pretty well, you know.
I know for me, for my personal, I too also do the spiritual 12 step. And the beauty of it is that, you know, I already knew that my life was unmanageable long before I came into that spiritual program.
Right.
And I had a problem with the whole concept of God right away.
Yep. Because
in my mind, I didn't see him as a loving God. I saw that as, why would you inflict me with this?
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, like you said, you know, if you're following the steps correctly, you know, and it's not something that, you know what, I'm going to do step 1 and then I'm going to skip down to step 5.
Right.
You have to follow them in the order that they are in.
Yep.
You have to make those amends. You have to be able to hit your knees and surrender your will.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to do all that, there's that recipe, and it's put into place for a reason.
Yep.
And I have found that even with the amount of clean time that we have, you and I both realistically know that we are still that one step away
Yep.
to losing it all. And I know that if I don't play my tape forward, I know that if I go back to that, there may not be another recovery in me.
Yep.
So I love the fact that, you know, we have those steps. Those steps are our toolkit.
Mm-hmm.
And I absolutely believe in giving it away. In order to have it, I have to give it away.
Right.
And sometimes that's not always easy to do. Sometimes, you know, you don't want to take that 10 o'clock phone call.
Right. Well, look how we met.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if it wasn't for recovery, you know, me and Sherry wouldn't be sitting here right now. Recovery is amazing. I mean, it's, you know, when I connect with people in meetings everywhere I can. My sponsor early told me, I want you to connect with every single person that walks in that door. Go give them a hug.
Yeah.
You know how I understood his strategy after about 5 years? And that was just to get out of myself and quit manifesting, you know, just about me. You know, but with Facebook, you know, I connect with everybody. If I know they're in recovery, I'll connect with them, you know, because I need that. You know, it's about God, spirit, and people. They want us to connect. We need to connect. And like I said, you know, I added you, I think, you know, probably 3 years ago maybe or something. And I always enjoy watching your journey, you know, and all the things that you have been through, and it's goosebumps, you know, it's amazing, you know, just to watch other people, you know, this is a free program, you know, it's freely given to us. And with society, or with, not society, with the media, the way we can search for things today, it's all out there, you know, it's free to us. It's for, you know, a lot more self-help stuff, you know, nowadays, you know.
And that was one of the reasons why I created this podcast, is that I wanted to show that with a lot of hard work, recovery is possible.
Yeah.
But it takes a lot of diligence to your program and giving it away.
Yeah.
And surrendering your will over to somebody that's a higher power. Now, granted, when we first come into the program, you know, even if you have to put your faith into that light bulb, you do that to get you through it.
Yep.
Eventually, what I'm finding for most people is that it does turn into that spiritual program.
Right.
However, yes, there is a place in it for Gnostics and whatnot. And everybody has their own pathway, and I'm not here to judge one way or another.
Right.
I just know that recovery has saved my life. Those steps have saved my life.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I would not be where I'm at today, you know, if it wasn't for the 12-step program, and it teaches you how to live life. I didn't know how to live life off of alcohol or drugs, you know. I realized later on I just winged it, you know, all those years. I was first introduced to the program early on. I knew I had a problem at 16. And I never, you know, I went back out for 20 some years, you know, but the great thing is I never ever forgot about that time I was there, you know. And the important thing is by going to that meeting, they made a huge impact on a 16-year-old kid, you know. And I remembered that, you know, 30 years later, 20 years later, I can't remember. I'm not going to reveal my age, but
right.
But you know, we always say when you come in, you know, come into the program, and you know, you'll never ever forget about it. And I think the reason that is because we felt good when we feel good when we're here, you know, and you're not going to forget the times that you feel good, you know. And that's what I do remember. I had so much fun, you know, when I was 16 in there, and you know, I was young. I didn't learn, you know. It took me a long time, but yeah, unless, you know, like you were saying too, the spiritual part is more later on, and getting a higher spiritual self or whatever. But
I think one of the biggest myths out there is that people don't believe that we can have a good time without alcohol. And I have to tell you, some of the best times I'm having are being chemical free. Yeah. And I find it just so liberating to be able to wake up in the morning and know exactly what I did the night before. Because
right.
You and I both know back in the past, we had to check our phones to see what nasty texts we sent, who we ticked off the night before. In the
middle of the night. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's just so refreshing to not be able to live under that bondage anymore.
Right. Yeah, I agree. But when you're using, you know, we don't know what happiness is. No. We don't know what fun is. You know, we think that going to the bar and, you know, listening to your favorite band or whatever, you know, drunk is fun, you know. And I didn't realize that, you know, until I got clean, that was not fun. Like you said, you wake up, you got to figure out who you call in the middle of the night, and I was bad at that. You know, I'd be calling people all the time, but
and what you're doing for your son today, he lives with you, and
yes.
he's not seeing the addicted dad.
Right. He grew up in the program. He was at his first meeting when he was a month old, you know. So I always goof around sometimes and say, well, my son here, he's got 9 years clean, so, you know, but like I said before, the program taught me everything. It taught me how to be or the 12 steps taught me how to be a dad, you know, and I was, unfortunately, it was kind of a forced thing where I ended up becoming, you know, a full-time single parent, and but, you know, I latched onto it. I loved it, and I've not let it go, you know, since then. But my son has one of the biggest hearts ever. And I get told by his teachers and the people in school how well he is. He's friendly. He's kind to people. He holds the door, and I thank the 12 steps for that, because I was taught how to do that stuff and be kind and friendly and loving and caring, and it's rolling on to him too, and it's amazing to see that, and it's another goosebump thing, but just a great kid, and it's tough being a parent, single parent, in addiction, and I know some that have 3, 4 kids that stay clean, stay sober, and it's possible.
It is.
It's possible because we have each other.
We do.
The recovery community is huge, and going back to your earlier question, I think we need to get more people to reach out to these younger kids and generation, and it's definitely not like the generation we grew up in.
No.
I mean, our parents was, you eat what's on your table, and or else, and today it's a lot more softer, and it's a huge problem. But it's possible. Anything is possible, and coming from a guy that I had the clothes I had on, and that was it. I had a bike and the clothes I had on, and
so
nowhere to
you've
live.
experienced homelessness firsthand. You
Yeah.
know what that feeling is
Yeah.
like, and you certainly do not want that for your child.
Right. Yep. Yeah, I definitely don't want him to live. He's never seen me use, so that's a blessing right there, and he's got we've talked about it, and not, the real heart-to-heart, thing yet. He's not quite at that age, but
Yeah, he doesn't know the real horrors of what
right.
Devin did.
Yeah. He just knows that, Dad and his mom is, she's also in recovery and doing very well. So that's another blessing, is just being able to co-parent with my son and his mom, and her being clean for, I think, 5 years now. It's a blessing. I've always believed that I think every child should have their mother and father in some way, and his mom was present, or not present for a while because of addiction, and but I always taught the program that we need to respect the people that are using, because we need to help them, and so I always taught my son to love his mother regardless. Like when he'd say, where's my mom? I'd be like, she'll be back at sometime, she's just sick right now, so he never ever thought any different of his mother, and that's huge, he doesn't need to live, our problems or whatever. So
If you could go back in time and talk to the younger Devin, what would you be telling him today?
Oh, the younger self. It's a good song. I like that song.
Yeah.
It's a really good question, but I think that I would just tell the younger self that things aren't going to always be this bad. It's going to pass. We're going to get through it, and I think that just like kids need that time, but my younger self, it's going to be all right. It's going to be okay. I wish I could do that. That'd be great. But I sometimes need to tell myself that today. It's going to be all right. This is going to pass, and everything will work out exactly the way it's supposed to.
Well, I know for myself, especially with with the COVID-19 happening is I'm a very social person. So from going to a sociability to no social time at all and being into a lockdown situation, the depression and the isolation get to me. I never used to be a hugger, but this program taught me to be a hugger.
Yeah.
And to not have that interaction. Zoom channels are kind of nice, but it's still not the personable.
Yeah.
And I know that for what I would have told my younger self, because we were talking earlier, and I truly believe this, Dr. Gabor Mate always said that addiction stems from trauma.
Yeah.
And I have spent my whole life, why I started it was to run from trauma. I wanted to avoid it. I wanted to put it on a shelf. I wanted to pretend that if it was out of sight, it was out of mind.
Right.
And I wanted to be perfect at everything that I did and pretend that none of this ever happened to me. And now, going back, and if I could tell Sherry, my younger Sherry, the same thing. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
This will pass. I wish I would have gone for therapy sooner. But you know yourself that us alcoholics, we are manipulative people. We are selfish people. We don't play well in the sandbox together.
Mm-hmm.
We want it our way or no way.
Right.
And we want to try and figure out our problems. And I think that's one of the hardest things, and I'm sure you've done this as well, to stress to the newcomer coming in that I want you to call me. There's a reason why I want you to call me. Because when you start thinking you can handle your shit, that's when you need a meeting more, because that's resting on your laurels.
Exactly.
And we cannot afford to do that, because let's face it, if we have any sort of time available, we get in our heads. And when we get in our heads, that is a dangerous place for us to be.
Right.
And we start thinking that we can run the show. And in actuality, we run nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But we're always trying to push on it.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, I agree. The connection thing is not the same on Zoom. The reason for me attending a Zoom 1, 2, 3 sometimes a day is because I need that connection, in some way. And I got to the point where I was like, I said to a friend of mine, I said, let's just get together. Mm-hmm. I need to have some human contact, and that hug, a hug from somebody, and that's what we do. But I don't know. I also had 2 back surgeries this last year, so I was isolated to the house. I couldn't go to Zoom because I was bedridden for a month, I think, or better, and that was probably the hardest time ever. Not having some contact in some way, but yeah, it's really tough, but.
So if I could ask you one last question, what do you see could be changed different about the system, and what would you do to change it? And one last question is, where do you see yourself a couple of years from now?
Well, I just think that there's not, the support is minimal for people that are seeking recovery, especially getting into treatment. I just had a friend that, he's been struggling, having a hard time, and he says, well, I have an assessment, in like 10 days. And I said, 10 days, when you're using like that, you don't have 10 days. So I think the one thing that, and it, not that the treatment centers or whatever are doing anything wrong, they just don't have the capacity to do it.
Don't have the funding.
They don't have the funding. They don't have the people.
Not to mention, each treatment is a little bit different. Some people specialize in the dual diagnosis, which it's co-occurring. More and more, it's so co-occurring.
Yep.
They have to be able to handle both. Some places, you know what, no, we can't take you because you've got a felony.
Right.
You know, that you have to cherry pick where you're going to go.
Right.
And then you're right, to wait for that bed. And when they're ready to go, and then if you're telling them that, nope, you got to wait, well, what are they going to do? They're going to run.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, the wait time is just, I just never ever understood that, you know. And that was coming from me going into, I put myself into sober home. So, and the wait there was a week, and I'm like, I'm a drunk, you know, like I don't have time to wait. I'm going to do something bad. And I actually did, I think 2 days later, did something really, really dumb, you know, and, you know, that's what we do. That's all we knew, you know, I think that needs to change, you know. We got to figure out a system, you know. Mental health is a huge issue, and it's unseen, you know, and that disturbs me.
Absolutely.
And, you know, I think a lot of times too, is people that have mental health issues don't identify with it, you know, and that makes things bad for our society. But
not to mention you're coming from that rural community. We were talking about there's not enough peer recovery specialists to go around. There's not the funding. There's barely enough in town.
Right.
to even touch upon this growing. The numbers are astronomical of how much they're growing, and there's just simply not the government funding, because our government's falling apart, especially with the financial. A lot of the treatment centers, like, you know, like Recovery's happening, grassroots. They're just, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and Paul's broke.
Yeah. Yep.
And there's just so many people that are needing the help, that cannot procure the services that they need.
Right.
And not to mention the fact that, you know, yes, you add on the mental illness factor, you add on the homeless factor, they don't have a mailing address.
Right.
There's just so many problems that are compounding. And, you know, what do you see? If you could have that magic wand, you know, what do you see what possibly that we could do at our level to help out more, other than being that presence for somebody?
Right. I've always thought about opening a place where people that are waiting to go into treatment, a place where they can go. You know, like, you know, they got
a transition place.
Exactly.
Yes.
You know, I think that having that in place, and having a bunch of them until we can come up with a solution to getting these people in within a couple days. You know, 2-3 day turnaround, I think would be a huge effect on our society. But maybe it's something we could do. You know what I mean?
I was going to say, by golly, that could be a calling.
Exactly.
There it is.
I mean, it's seriously, I think that people, because there's people that want to stay sober.
Yes.
You know, but if they're stuck in the same environment, they know they're not going to stay clean, and some of them know that they could die. You know, and it's happened. I've watched it. You know, so having that place where somebody could go would be you know, amazing to have, and I don't think we have anything like that around here. You know.
So that was going to lead me to my last question. Where do you see yourself going?
Right.
Moving forward, how would you pay that forward?
Yeah. You know, I've really expanded myself at a higher level I guess you can't really say higher level. I'm doing bigger things in the program. I'm running our local or state website for our recovery program. You know, I'm doing stuff like that, and in actuality, the site was down for a while, like 3 months, and I said, this is my calling. You know, instead of being isolated, I said, you know what? I need to find somebody that can help us get the site up, because people need it. You know, so I did what I could to find some help, and I found a lady that was willing to give of her time, which was amazing. And we worked together. It was a developer for the website, and we worked together days and nights, long hours for a week straight, and we got the site going up. So anything that I can do to make a difference in society is what I'll be doing in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. You know what I mean? So in other words, you know, I'm not going to change what I'm doing today. You know, I'm going to still, I do change the way I help individuals. You know, I used to be mad or upset that someone relapsed, you know, but that's their story, and that's just maybe part of their story. And I didn't look at it like that before.
It's their journey to take.
Yeah.
And that's very hard, because with sponsoring, you know, especially when somebody relapses, we tend to take that on ourselves. And in actuality, that was very hard for me to get over, especially when there was a fatal outcome.
Right.
And you do if I could have done some more. In actuality, I've had to learn there was nothing I could do.
Right, exactly. And I've learned that a lot over the last 5 years is, you know, I give what was freely given to me to the people that I help out. And I tell them, you know what, they're like, oh, I'm not doing this or I'm not doing that. I said, well, that's, you know, that's too bad, but, you know, I mean, you're going to hurt yourself, you know, I mean, so, and I don't take it, try not to take it too serious, but, or take it at heart like it's my problem, I should say, you know, because it's really their journey, and they need to live that journey, you know.
Yeah.
That's what we did,
That's
you
what
know,
we did.
so.
Well, I could talk recovery all day with you. I am so passionate about it. It is something that needs to be addressed. Unfortunately, the numbers are continuing to grow. I truly believe with my whole being, with a lot of hard work and diligence to your program, that recovery is indeed possible. I always say, the one post I have, that, you know, recovery is, or addiction's messy, but recovery is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And once you see the miracle of it, and it is truly, life is not perfect, but it's so much better than what we had.
Yep.
So I so appreciate you coming from your town to come to see me in my town.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for everything that you do. The recovery world is very blessed to have somebody that has so many years of sobriety. You have a strong record, even though we still know that we are always that drink away.
Absolutely.
But so many of the young men in your program are benefiting from your experience, strength, and hope, and I thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity.